Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shells and Shadows. Today's guest is AJ. AJ, how are you?
Good. How are y'all?
Good, man. Glad
Yeah,
we made this work.
for sure, for sure. It's been
Um,
long overdue.
it
Sorry
has
about
been. No.
that.
It's all good.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
AJ, what's your last name? I don't even
Dolgov,
say it again.
Dolgov.
Okay, so I never even knew that. You're just AJ to me.
And it's I have like my secret names, so at least you got the one that most people know.
Ephraim Natan.
Frame Natan
That's
is
another
is the
one.
real name. That's the real name. But AJ was a name I adopted like after I moved from like a rival town, like, and like I like wanted to redo my identity, and I was like,
Okay.
all right, like AJ is my new name now. And then since then I've been AJ.
What'd you go by before?
Adam.
Adam.
Yeah.
Wow. Where's the J come from?
Jason, my middle name.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. This is very revealing for this podcast.
I
No,
know.
not many people know this information about
You
me.
started off with like a big secret.
I'm already dropping secrets here.
I know. Or as Yitzy knows you, AJYY.
AJ Wawa, we got the
Totally
AJ
fine.
Wawa here.
Fresh spring water, actually. All right.
Sure.
Well, why don't you just start off by telling everyone who is AJ?
Okay, so I think just as a little background information about myself, I had a very challenging childhood. My growing up for the first 6 years of my life, I had a fairly normal childhood. I have two parents, brother, a dog eventually. So fairly normal at some point. Things kind of like took a big dive around when I was like 6 years old, and my parents had a really bad separation. So that was very interesting, and also led me to having this like parts of my trust being broken and hurt, and like where I thought they would be together, and always I never had like the best of relationships with my dad. As a matter of fact, I used to like picture other people's dads instead of my dad, and like with my mom, because my mom was like very loving to me, and I was very connected to my mom, not so much to my dad. My dad is very authoritarian and kind of like disciplinary type of dude back then. So yeah, but then they had a really bad separation when I was 6. Basically, courts got custody of me because of how bad the separation was. So they had like legal guardianship of me, and they got to determine who had visitation, who had most of the time with me. So at the time, I was living with my mom and had some visitation with my dad. And yeah, it was a really challenging time in my life. But yeah, that was the first few years. And as another background, I come from a family of drug addicts, as well as my grandparents were Holocaust survivors who also abused alcohol. Also, coming from such a traumatic experience themselves, but they did what they could to survive, and picked up from nothing, and you know moved to Brooklyn after somehow miraculously found each other in the refugee camps after Auschwitz, and yeah, moved to Brooklyn, had my mom.
They were together
Um,
before the camps.
yeah, they were together before the camps.
They both survived.
They survived, found each other in the refugee camps afterwards, which is very rare. Not everyone finds their family afterwards. So yeah, then they came over here. Unfortunately, their kids died. Pretty much the whole family died, except for my grandma's sister who moved to Israel prior to the war. So yeah, so there's a lot of generational trauma, and yeah, and in my personal immediate family, and there's a lot of drug abuse and whatever. Yeah, because that was a segue into that. Is that 2 years after my parents separated, my mom attempted suicide. Not that I knew at the time, but like it came off as an accident to me as a little kid. But and that was from a drug overdose like type of thing. Not drug overdose, but it was a poor drug combination.
So you were 8 at the time?
I was 8 years old at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So then my custody got flipped to my dad, with my brother. But my brother eventually ran away to live with my mom after she got out of the hospital. So then I was like alone with my dad. And again, like I said, we didn't have the best of relationships. It's a tough time for me. Eventually he remarried, and um, yeah, having a stepmom at that time was helpful, at least to balance my home dynamic, since my father was not we just didn't have the best relationship. And yeah, so there was some balance in there with a stepmom in the picture now, and two stepbrothers. Um, but by the time I was 12 or 11, I had like a big streak of like a bunch of death in my life. So like at 11, my grandma died. And I had a very surreal experience about that also, where I came home and I I came home from school and I was normally alone after school because it's with my dad and he was working. So came home and there's this like crazy like ringing like humming sound in my ears that like was slow, like not super audible, but then got super loud, and it scared me completely. At that same moment, I knew my grandma died also. Like it was a very surreal moment.
And you were
Um,
11?
I was 11, yeah, and
Wow.
I knew exactly what happened, but I had to run away from the house because the ringing in my ears was very scary. But yeah, 20 minutes later, my mom called me and told me she died, and the funeral and all the things. So, um, kind of crazy timing. But yeah, then in that same period of time, in the next year, my dog died, and then my mom also died. She overdosed on heroin. So, yeah, not that it was intentional. It was just what she was doing at the time.
Was this her mom that had died?
It was her mom that died.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, very intense time for me. Unfortunately, I didn't have anyone to talk to about her death. It was feelings were very stuffed, especially growing up in New Jersey. Is there's not really like there's a thing to like keep your masculine presence and not be emotionally in touch and all that. But also, my dad was so hateful toward my mom. He wasn't like an outlet for me to express those feelings. So I basically had all these trapped feelings. I wasn't able to process her death. There's all this unprocessed sadness and trauma and all this stuff. Yeah, and then
And that's a really young age to be dealing with all that by yourself.
for sure, for
I mean,
sure,
for any age, that's a lot. But 11 is
yeah,
you're becoming very self aware at that point. But how do you process and begin to process that?
yeah. My rationalization at the time was that I chose not to see her right before she died. Unfortunately, something happened between her and my brother when my brother was living with her, and my brother called me and said that like don't see her. She's not in a good place and whatever. He was the only unbiased voice in my life at the time, so I went off what he said. I didn't really inquire too much about it. I just like went with it. So at the time I was rationalizing her death. I was like, wow, like I was her baby, like, like I was like, she treated me a lot differently than my brother. Also, we had completely different relationships, but I was very guarded. Like she really guarded me and protected me from everything and really like gave me a lot of love and really always told me that like, that I'm perfect the way I am. I came out of her perfect. That like, like I was always her baby. Like, I was like her life pretty much, like in her eyes. And so I was like, okay, like maybe if I saw her before she died, she wouldn't have been so depressed. She wouldn't have done so much heroin, whatever. Like I made those rationalizations in my head. Obviously with no one to tell me like, no, it wasn't your fault. Like blah 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 blah. So yeah, yeah, it was a very sad time in my life. But yeah, then I just kind of like bypassed those feelings and just kind of like went with it. And I was going to school and yeah, like it was an interesting time period in my life. I'm just trying to touch on significant events in my life, but yeah, then eventually, um, I started just living a more. I was always kind of the same personality, but living a more shallow life in a way. I pushed away good friends of mine that I made in over the couple years that I moved to this other town and started becoming like a cooler kid, and whatever that means, but more popular and more, just in that world. And yeah, I, I in turn got some more shallow friends, and started like trying like smoking cigarettes and weed and
How
drinking.
old were you at this point?
13 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, 13 years old. Starting, I blacked out drunk the first time. The first time I drank, I like drank a lot with my friend, and she had to get her stomach pumped. It was like a massive thing. Anyway, yeah, and then I was lying to my dad and my ex stepmom. I guess that's some foreshadowing that they broke up, but yeah, yeah, I eventually I was lying to them a lot because my dad was super overprotective, and they was like, you're gonna end up like your mom, you're not gonna go to college. They always gave me like lots of like negative reinforcement. Like even though I had like great grades in high school, whatever, even though I was like doing this stuff, like I had like a 3.6 GPA, I was like fine. Like I had extracurricular activities, but yeah, what they saw was there was a kid lying, and like that they couldn't control me like in a certain way. Um,
So out in the world, you had like the outer image set, like you were successful in school, you had these cool friends, but like there was other stuff going on under the surface.
of course, internally I was lost. Like I was lost since my mom died.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the other, and also I had a terrible home life because it was like my ex stepbrothers were not being treated the way I was being treated, and I was very much like a black sheep of the family, isolated as like the problem of the family, even though obviously it's a whole dysfunctional family dynamic. It doesn't only have to do with me, although I had issues also. It's not to say I didn't, but yeah, eventually all that culminated into uh, being sent away to a wilderness program.
The woods.
Yes, the good old woods in Duchesne, Utah. Yep.
Where in Utah is that?
It is in northeast Utah, in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
It is literally out there. Because there was times I was like, maybe I can run away, like, and I was like, there's nowhere to run over there.
Is that near like San Rafael Swell? Is that area?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Duchesne is like the closest like town, like, but
Got
they
it.
bring you out to the Uinta Mountains. So like in the summertime, I was in the Uinta Mountains. Thank God I wasn't there in the summer, but yeah, yeah, I went there. That was really the first like moments where that I kind of, I guess, should I give a background on the wilderness program? Like,
Yeah, go for it. I mean,
okay,
I'm
yeah.
familiar. I'm pretty open. I'm familiar with it
So
'cause of
basically, you
my
get
story. But keep
so
it going.
most people get like gooned like in the middle of the night is what they
Yeah.
call it. They get like these two bodyguards that come in the middle of the night and just like abduct you pretty much with your parents' consent, obviously, and take you to these programs. Luckily for me, my dad took me and I didn't get gooned.
Same here.
Which is like I was grateful for it because when I heard their stories, I was like, oh my gosh, like that could be traumatic, like but yeah, for sure. Yeah, so my dad woke me up in the middle of the night and told me we're going and whatever. I didn't really like, you know, didn't complain too much. I was like, yeah, like if I leave right now, like cops are gonna pick me up somewhere along the way. I might as well just go with him. So I went with him. Yeah. So then, yeah, you basically get sent against your will to these part of this larger troubled teen industry, programs, which usually starts with a wilderness program, and yeah, that you go there. The minimum is like six. I don't know. I forgot what the minimum is. The minimum is like 30 days or something, and like I was like so convinced like I was gonna be gone in 30 days. And then I realized that no one is gone in 30 days. So like I was like, okay, just give me longer than 30 days. But that's really the first time where obviously I'm separated from, like, when you're in a wilderness program, you're completely isolated from everyone and everything. You don't know what time it is. You don't know what your friends are doing. You don't know anything. You don't have a phone. You don't have communication with anyone. Only eventually you get communication with your parents, but you're really just out there with a group of people that are also in this program, and then staff members, and the staff members don't tell you what's going on in the world or what time it is or anything. They just you're just there. They tell you, okay, like we're going hiking. Okay, we're hiking. Like, and you're hiking with this 100-pound pack, and it's my first time in the mountains ever. Like, just so the nature was great, and I think it's very healing in many ways, to be separated from that friend group in New Jersey and separated from all my roles in my friend groups and my roles in my family, and just be completely isolated. and in nature, because it really like starts, all the things start opening up. All the unprocessed trauma from my mom's death starts flowing in. I like had vivid dreams every single night, especially for the first 2 weeks of my mom like either faking her death or like hugging me or something, and just like like bawling, crying in the dream, like like, and then waking up and I'm like in the middle of the wilderness somewhere, and I'm like, oh, like, but it feels so real because the dreams are so vivid, like. But yeah, that was really when I started processing like her death. I was able to do that over there, and really kind of like have more self introspection, even though I'm introverted. But really kind of be in touch with that side, and really look at what's my life, like what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like what's been the life so far?
It's interesting to me that like nature was your point of connection and opening up back then, because now you're like Mr. Nature here in our community,
It's
walking around in sandals, drinking spring water and all that.
for sure, it's been a big part of my life.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
yeah, I'm grateful for that. Yeah. So yeah, I from there, there's two options: either you go home or you go to a secondary program. I was also very convinced I was gonna go home afterwards, and then come to find out there's this whole system, a very um, messed up system, and detrimental system, in my opinion, that basically entraps kids into these secondary programs after a wilderness program, where an educational consultant will come and convince your parents to send them to a secondary program, so that way they get a kickback from the money, and everything costs a lot of money. Like, so yeah, basically all the money my mom saved for me over those years, which I've seen in bank accounts because she would show me, like, all went to these programs.
Did you feel like wilderness was beneficial?
For
Did
sure. I,
did you
I have no regret about any experience in my life.
Okay.
I think if you like the person that you are today and where you've come in life and where you are today, all those experiences that you've been through in life are part of that, part of your culmination of who you are. So to view anything as negative means you don't. I mean, in my opinion, it means you don't like some part of yourself right now, and it means you need to change yourself now. Because if you like who you are today and where you've come today and who you are today, all those experiences are a part of you. Thus, there's no reason to reflect on them negatively. If you come to a good place in life, it's all positive experiences. So that's my personal take on all those experiences.
It's profound.
Do I think that those programs should exist? No, but but in my own personal life, I went through the program. I'm not gonna like, okay, like, what if it didn't exist and I went through the blah blah blah, like. It doesn't make sense to chick chalk on it because I like who I am today and where I've come today. So those experiences are all positive for me. Do I think those programs should be banned, and are they traumatic, and are they really not moral or ethical? Yeah, for sure. But yeah, but it's all part of who I am today, so I have no regret about it.
Sure.
Probably the only regret I have is not seeing my mom before she died, but um, I can't let that one go just yet. I still haven't let it go. I'll be very honest, um, but otherwise everything else I'm like, okay, like, I think every one of the, I mean, that experience also is part of me and who I am today also. But yeah, I think that they hold a place somewhere, but in this society, I think it'd be better for someone that is struggling to be in therapy within their family dynamic. That way, it's like the issue is not only them. Obviously, it got isolated as me, but like the issue is the whole family dynamic, and which I found out afterwards, after when I came home. Also, after I did all this work on myself, because afterwards I went to a boarding school for 15 months, and
Secondary care
yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So afterwards, I got sent to this therapeutic boarding school, which is like there's like at tiers. So like you could be in a residential treatment center, or you could be in a therapeutic boarding school afterwards. So I got like the residential treatment centers are usually a little bit more strict, and like the therapeutic boarding schools usually have more freedom.
Yeah. So
At the end of the day,
you
though,
were at a therapeutic boarding school.
yeah,
Okay. I was at an RTC, so like
yeah,
definitely on the more on the lenient side of that whole system of the RTCs, but like
Yeah,
familiar with both.
for sure. So at the boarding school, there were people there that have went to the woods and went to RTC, and now they're at the therapeutic boarding school.
Got it.
So like it was like a step up, but like
You're
and they
there.
and they said it was a step up from their RTC, but like yeah, but for me, I was like therapeutic boarding school was also like very very. I mean, I guess in comparison to their stories, yeah, like I didn't go through what they went through, but for me, it was like pretty much the same stuff as the wilderness. You're not connected to the outside world. You don't know what's going on. Like, you're it's pretty much disconnected fully, almost.
So how was that experience?
That experience was very intense, very traumatic in many ways. The therapeutic boarding school was a part of a chain of schools called CEDU. And there's amazing documentaries on CEDU and also Netflix series now, multiple series about these types of boarding schools. So yeah, those boarding schools are uh, built from a cult called Synanon, which is labeled as America's most dangerous cult. Basically, these guys took in older hippies that were like above adult. They're already in their early adulthood, um, trying to save them from basically ruining their lives and being on the streets and stuff. And what they did is they implemented a lot of these things that are used at these boarding schools now still, which is you have to agree to go abide by these certain rules. There's disciplines for all your actions. It's very structured. Yeah, standards is what the rules are called. You have to be fully within the standards and agreements, and basically they decided that, well, we want to get to the root of the problem prior to them getting into this early adulthood. Why don't we start, adolescent schools? That way we could take these hurt, damaged children, and before they get to this stage, we can fix them. So, and this is all without therapeutic credentials, without any sort of like real uh, oversight.
Yeah. I mean, I think the intention seemed pure in itself. Like that, what you just said of let's
Yeah.
look at preventative care versus dealing with consequences later down the road when these people developed into, adults. But as you'll probably tell me, the intention probably differed greatly from the approach.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, all these schools end up closing usually due to abuse. Like that's usually how it goes. There's no true like therapeutic models that they're using. It's basically based on attack therapy, and uh, when you're in these schools, you get well. I can only speak for myself, but I could speak for a lot of my friends also. You get this kind of like Stockholm syndrome where like these people are like your saviors and like you really open up to them and you're sharing stuff with them. The staff are also sharing stuff with you, and you go through these like in my school and in most of the CEDU style schools, you go through these like five like workshops. These five like
Levels.
yeah, it's like it's almost five levels, but like you go through these five like intensive therapy days where you're like barely sleeping and barely eating and like you're just like
Sounds like a fraternity.
you're revealing your deep start. It's funny you say that. I had PTSD when I started pledging, but yeah,
Me too. Me too.
yeah, it's like wow, I actually had PTSD. Okay, yeah, so yeah, um, so basically, yeah, you go through these five workshops. In my school, it was called workshops, and in other schools, it was called different things. But yeah, it all originated from the original CEDU school, where they were called prophets, like and and they all have their own theme, and basically the whole thing is each one of those things is either 2 days long or 3 days long or 4 days long, depending on where you are in that process. And they have a theme, and they basically break you down during the whole thing. You're sharing your deepest, darkest secrets to people, your deepest, darkest like shadows and all these things. And the staff are also sharing, by the way, like the staff are sharing some terrible things that they've done also, which is in one hand like wow, it's cool, but on the other hand, it's like like you're a therapist also playing this role, and like it's like semi inappropriate depending on what they're sharing, especially if it has to do with something with like rape or something, or like something like really bad. Then obviously it's like whoa, like, but
Did that come up from any of the
it did come up.
therapists?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like, or like they raping someone, or they like, or like it's like it's very much so you're revealing very deep dark parts of you, um including the staff. So it was very interesting, and also a lot of the therapists there didn't have like real credentials, but yeah, we had that, and very coupled with very intensive therapy, group therapy every week, 3.5 hours. You never know what's gonna happen. You can like, and but you have, the thing is, you have to talk, and you have to say something, and you have to like perform in these groups. Like if you don't perform in these groups, then it goes against you, and either everyone will turn on you, or you'll be sent to suspension, which is like um basically a place that you would have less rights than a prisoner. You're basically you're sitting in a desk facing straight. You can't talk to anyone in school, and you can only ask like 4 questions. You can like ask to get your backpack, go seconds at a mealtime, go to the bathroom. Uh, yeah, that, I forgot the last question, but yeah, that's it. Um, so yeah, it's very intense, and you didn't want to go there. At least, if anything, you didn't want to go there at least, and also you didn't really want to get held back either. So like when you get to the school, you have an expected graduation date. So I had one of the shorter stays where I got to the school and it closed off the graduation date. So I was in December grad, but I got there in September. So, but if I got held back, then I would have been held back to the May graduation. It's like another 5 months at the school. So I was like, I have to do everything to avoid that. Like,
Yeah.
there's a maximum of only 2 you could be held back for, but you don't want to be held back at all. So like, you really want to perform because you're like, okay, like I really don't want that to happen. There's people that rebelled. Don't get me wrong. There's people that rebelled, but like most of the people went with the stuff, went with the school, went with the rules. The students enforce the rules on each other. Also, it's not just like the staff. That's part of the whole system that they instill in you. Is that it's for your good to enforce the rules on other students, and to hold people to a high standard and whatever, and I could see how that plays out in the real world also, but yeah, but it turns people against each other also. So yeah, then so that whole experience, I think I segued really hard, but I think you asked, was it a positive experience? It was definitely, I learned a lot, and I had to also unlearn a lot afterwards. But I definitely am a lot more self aware because of the experience. All the friends that I've made in that program, if I decide to call a single one of them right now, they would all pick up the phone, or at least text me back and ask if I need something. And I can have, and any of them, I feel like, and it's kind of trauma bonds, but it's really like I could talk to them about anything. Like I feel no barriers, no, and they also know my whole life, because when you meet someone there, the first experience you have with someone there is you share your life story with them, and they share your life story with you. So your relationship builds on knowing their whole life story. So you're already like, okay, like I know your whole life story, like I know your stuff a little bit, like, and then you could see how it all plays out, like over the time when you're in school with them. So yeah, I can call them all up, and they'll all be willing to help me or talk to me or whatever, and that's amazing part of it. Um,
Yeah. I have a few really good friends that I made there. One of whom, Drew, if he's listening, Drew and I became really close, and we still see each other probably like once a year or so, up
Sweet,
till this day.
sweet,
There definitely are those people that I met there that really helped me through it, because we were going through the same thing, and
yeah,
again, sharing everything about one another, because we're there because we're looking to improve and become better people. And I also think that while the program that I went to wasn't, the structure of the program wasn't beneficial to me, I think there were people and therapists in particular that did have a positive influence on me. Like, if not the system itself, certain individuals that stick out with me that
Yeah.
really empowered me. But I do like what you said about having to unlearn
Yeah.
certain things, because it's not a natural environment to be in, and you can't take the exact rules and or standards of a place like that and bring it back here without just like modifying how you live in the real world, because it's not the real world. It's feel almost like a simulated, set of place with sets of rules that don't really exist here.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and that's in general with troubled teen industry things is that it's not in my very strong opinion, and probably in the opinion of a lot of people that have been through those programs, it's not the ideal way to go about helping yourself in the real world. I mean, right afterwards, I pretty much, I went from there to college, like within a month.
Yeah.
I mean, when as soon as I got home, I also realized that, like, I was like, wow, I did all this work on myself. My family's still the same. Like, I was like, it's like, yeah. And not only are they still the same, I can't live here. Like, I was like, the same thing I left, like, the reason why they sent me away in the first place is because I left home. Like, because I was like, yeah, I can't live here. Had the same thing happen when I came back. I was like, oh, I can't live here. It's dysfunctional. I see why I thought that way when I left. But now I have all this work that I did on myself, and I still think the same thing. It was like that they didn't do any work on themselves. I did work on myself. But the core issue is that we had a dysfunctional family unit. Like, and that was a real problem. So luckily, I only had a month because then I went to college, so I didn't have to stay there that long.
That's good. I want to transition into another topic.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've had this whole journey. You go to college, and I mean, you've shared a bit with me about what college was like. You were in a fraternity and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, you grow your beard out and start wearing a kippah and become
Sure.
more of a connected Jew. So
Mm-hmm.
what was that journey like? Where did it start? If not with Judaism, where did you start exploring, and how did it get you to where you are now?
For sure. So, yeah, it's good why you need to know all that stuff because it comes into this whole thing also is that okay, so I go to school. I'm a fraternity bro. I started blacking out, drinking, drugs, doing all the things. You know what I mean? Like I was out there. Eventually, I started taking things away one by one that weren't serving me. First one being alcohol, which I was like 19 years old, I think, and I was like, yeah, like I'm doing all these other drugs, and like they don't give me hangovers, and I don't black out, and like why would I do drinking? Like, doesn't make sense. So I pulled that out, and then it's like one by one, it's like okay, like cigarettes. I don't need cigarettes. I actually just want to smoke weed. I don't really like cigarettes that much. Like, so I pulled out the cigarettes, and it was like one by one, just put like having all that introspection from all those experiences beforehand, and also being introverted, and the desire to do things that were more better for my life, regardless of what that meant at that time. But I was very into like purity of drugs, and also like helping my friend find pure drugs to have those experiences. And yeah, I think that that whole thing was like okay, like for sure, it's not just like stom things that or not nonsensical things that I was like doing. I was like, all right, like I need to pull out things that aren't really serving me in my life. So one by one, eventually synthetic, anything synthetic, and then eventually my diet, no fast food, no soda. And I'm like, okay, now I'm eating all organic. Now I'm going to farms, and this is all like at the tail end of college. My friends would think I'm going crazy, but like,
Yeah.
they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I'm like, this is it. Like,
Man, I need my raw milk from the
I
farm.
was like, bro, like you guys don't understand. Like
You guys
this,
don't
I was
get
like,
it.
I was like, you guys are like, you're missing out. Like, like, and like, it's like I've been in that experience with you guys. I've been blacked out drunk with you guys. I'm like, you have to segue here. Like, this is the real stuff. Like, you're gonna feel good here. Like, so yeah, like they thought I was going crazy, like crazy hippie AJ, but or Enzo, I guess I was called in college, but but yeah, yeah. Eventually, I was like, okay, like like I I was like, all right, like I'm gonna start going to farms, sourcing my food locally. I went to, fully grass fed, see the cows in the pasture, like raw milk, all from the right breed of cow, like all the things. Doing that life. And then I was living with a vegan guy at the time, and he was like, and he like he started like, and there was a time in boarding school where I took a nutrition class, and in that nutrition class we saw how food is like produced and how meat is produced, and the factory farming and the killing of the animals and stuff. And I was like, oh my, like it touched me in a way, but like I didn't internalize it in a way where I was like, I actually made a change. But like it touched me in a way where I was like, I don't want that. Like I don't want to kill an animal. I don't want to do any of that. Like, so I was living with this vegan guy, and he was like, yeah, like he's sharing with me his journey and the whole vegan, his vegan journey. And I was like, okay, that aligns with everything I agree with. Like, like I like yeah, I'm doing the most healthy way to eat animal products, but like I was like, yeah, but like I don't agree with eating animals. So not only am I segueing taking things out of my life that weren't serving me one by one, but now I'm really trying to align myself with my spiritual path, where I'm like, okay, like I don't agree with eating with meat. I don't agree with eating animals. I don't agree with killing animals. Okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna stop doing that. So then I became vegan, and then that segued a whole different part of my spiritual journey, where now I'm trying to align my lifestyle with my ethics and my morals and my spiritual path. Coming into this path, um, I moved to Ecuador after college, and I was like, okay, like I had a very grandiose dream to live self-sustainably off the land, create a new consciousness shift in the world, and try to like grow food for free and produce food for free and give it out, and like live without money. And like I had this whole grandiose dream. It didn't turn into that, but I had that dream.
It's
and
okay. It's a good dream. I mean, if it were to be a reality, it would be a
for
better
sure,
part.
for
Yeah.
sure. But I did make the move down there. I sold all my things. I moved down there. I came back, and when I came back, I was like, all right, I was living in the mountains there. I was like, okay, like my soul needs to live in the mountains. I felt so connected in the mountains, so I moved out. I moved out to Colorado. And yeah, I was really, again, just doing this whole alignment with my spiritual journey. And where it segued into the Jewish journey is that I right before I moved to Colorado, I was living with a few frat brothers in Jersey, and one of them just graduated, and he's also Jewish. And we made a plan. We're like, okay, we're gonna go to Shabbat this weekend. And I was like, okay, like I'm so down for spiritual things at this time. I'm like, yeah, like let's go. Like I'm like, I'm learning all this eclectic, like spiritual stuff where it's like connect with your roots and who you are. And I'm like, okay, like I haven't connected with my roots. Like I want to connect to my roots. Yeah, like let's do that. So yeah, it was like it sounded like a great plan. So he's like, yeah, I've been going, like it's great, we should go. So oddly enough, like 2 days later, he ends up passing away in his sleep, like 5 feet from me, like a very crazy thing. Um, and yeah, there's no cause of death. It's just like he just passed away in his sleep. And um, Out of that respect and out of that agreement that we made to go to Shabbat that week, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Shabbat this week. I have to honor him. I was like that was our agreement. So what if he's not here? Like we said, we're gonna go to Shabbat this week. I'm going. So my campus rabbi did like a nice little memorial service for him, and like I said Kaddish for him, and it was like it's very special actually. But at that Shabbat table, um, well, there's another story beforehand that I need to segue into this one. Is that when I was in Ecuador, I was thinking about doing my birthday trip, and in order to do my birthday trip, I have cousins in Israel. Those cousins are on my mom's side, and I lost complete contact with them after my mom died. So for like nine years at that point, I haven't talked to them. But I knew if I was gonna do my birthday trip that I needed to see my cousins. Like otherwise, I didn't feel like I missed out on something. So there I am in Ecuador trying to call rabbis, religious friends, Google, Facebook, doing the whole search, trying to find them as much as I could. Staying very optimistic, but not so like realistically. I was like, this probably won't work, but staying optimistic. Good thing I was in a very good spiritual headspace at the time because I was like, all right, like, like just think good. It's going to happen. Like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. But literally a week after me looking for them, they found my brother on Facebook.
Wow.
which was like, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to Israel. Like it was like I just knew. So anyway, so now I'm at the Shabbat after my fraternity brother passed away. I'm talking to this guy about my spiritual journey, this whole thing, this whole life stuff, and because I'm coming with my own food and my spring water and all the stuff.
Where was this?
This is in Jersey,
Okay.
so I've been doing this for a long time now. It's already like 10 years in the making. So, yeah. So then, I'm coming with my own food and my spring water. He's asking questions. I'm telling him about my journey and how I got to this, and like, and he's like, bro, you have to go to Spot. I was like, what? Like, I was like, what's that?
Classic.
He's like, trust me. I heard your story. I heard everything you're saying. He's like, just go to Spot. You're gonna understand. I was like, all right. Like, I don't even know what Spot is at this point. I was just like, all right, like, cool. I'm like, what is Spot? He's like, it's a place. He's like, you have to go there. I was like, he's like the birthplace of the mysticism and the Kabbalah and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, and I was already at the point in my spiritual journey. I was like, someone's telling me this, like that I especially specifically that I don't know. I was like, oh, like their soul is telling me something, and to tell my soul. So
Yeah.
I was like internalizing it. I was like, okay, like when I go there, I'm gonna go to Spot. So that summer, I ended up, I moved to Colorado. Interesting things happened. I lost the job that I came out here for, and then like was semi homeless for a little bit. And then like I was like, all right, I'm going to Israel for 3 months. Like I was like, that's it. Like so then I went to Israel for 3 months. I ended up going to Svat, on birthright the first time, and there was a rabbi that took us on a expedition telling us about what a mikveh is and the significance, and he brings us to the Arizal mikveh, and he's like, yep, like now you're gonna go dip in here, and like you're gonna reach your spiritual tikkun in your lifetime, and like your rectification and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, like say less, like I was like, you don't have to tell me twice, like I'm down, like. So it was so funny because all of us beforehand were like, we're gonna get naked and go into the water. No, like that's not happening. Like, and like after this whole walk and he's explaining all this stuff, all of us went in. Like it was so funny, the transition. So yeah. So then afterwards, I stayed for 3 months. I was reconnected with my cousins. It was a beautiful experience. But really, what segmented my Jewish experience was me going back to Sfat and learning. And like, I was like, what is Judaism? Like, what does it mean? What's the Zohar? Like, I was like, what's all this mysticism? Like, I need to know why we do this, what we do, and then just learning there. I was like the things that like I was thinking what God is and what Judaism says God is. I was like, oh, like it's not this like Christian idea of like someone's like saying yes, no, what you're doing is right, what you're doing is wrong. It's like this. It's this more like this is the creator of the world. This creator consciousness that like is envelops all of us, and like we're all part of it, but we're also all subservient to it. And it like it's this beautiful thing. And I was like, oh, like I've come to those conclusions on my spiritual journey already. And I was like, oh, okay, like it aligns.
But like now you took your spiritual journey and everything you were searching for, and it just collided with your roots.
Yeah,
And you're like, oh,
yeah,
my people have the answers to everything I've been looking for, and I've been looking for it in the rest of the world, but I finally found it like at home.
yeah. And this is very
It's a
classic.
very I've experienced that. I know other people that have experienced that.
Yeah.
And when your spiritual journey like collides with your roots, it's this powerful connection.
For sure. And it's such a classic Svat story also, where like people just like, I was searching all around the world. I was in this monastery in China, and like all of a sudden I was like, they're like, you have to connect to your roots, and they're like, and then they go to Svat, and they're like, oh, okay, and then they're like in Svat forever. Like, like it's just like like literally, it's just like it's so funny. So I have a almost a similar like classical Svat story, but while I was in Svat, also I met this guy who had a very similar experience to me. Also vegan, also moved to Ecuador. Also like two parallel that like I met him, and I was like, dude, I was like, but he was already religious. He already got to the Jewish part of the journey, and I was like, tell me what's up. I was like, is this it? Like, is this the path? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right. Like, I was like, I got you, man. Like, it was so funny because it was like we had too much parallel.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, like you have a message for me. I was like, tell me what's the message? Like, um, and then like the few days into being there, like I ended up like I was on the porch of Ascent, which is like a co-ed learning yeshivish hostel thing. Shout out to Ascent. Yeah, they're amazing organization. But I was on the balcony there, and it was like during the Klezmer Music Festival, so it was like lots of people hanging out over there. And I hear this guy talking, and like I was like, your voice sounds so familiar. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you look familiar. And I was like, me? He's like, you look familiar. I was like, who are you? I was like, and then like I'm like sitting there processing, and I'm like, wait, are you the guy that told me to go to Spot? Like, and he's like, oh yeah, like it was like, yeah, it was a crazy, like, you know, when you're in the right place at the right time and like
Yes.
everything aligns. I was like, yeah, I was meant to be here, learn all these lessons. Yeah, okay, okay. Like, so I was like, it was beautiful. So yeah, then eventually, just like the rest of my story, eventually, you know, I came back to Colorado and started one by one just doing more and more in my Jewish path in order to, you know, like not working on Shabbat and, you know, like just one by one wearing a kippah, you know, being aligned in that way. And then, of course, a pivotal moment comes at some point when, after Rosh Hashanah in 2017, that we're all smoking weed in the back and you know, just like in a circle, talking about God, talking about creation, talking about like, did this really happen this way, and this whole philosophical thing. And there was this Moroccan Sephardi girl visiting, and she was staying by the Chabad, and she was so like her passion and her like emunah was so strong like that like it affected me in such a way like I was like wow like I picking up what she was like what she's saying. So like one guy was arguing this like you know classical New York like you know like secular dude who was just like he was like yeah man he's like it can't be the way it says in the Torah like you know like it just doesn't make sense like God made the world in 7 days. And she's like how do you know you weren't there like and like her like Muna was like I was like wow I was like yeah we don't know. I was like, and I've come to a conclusion already in my path that like we don't know anything because I was like, we don't really know anything. We just know what we experience and what we, you know. But you know, in a collective space, we don't really know much. And I feel like that's where you can actually be open minded when
It's a
you.
very humble way to have emunah.
Yeah, it's also a humble way to be open minded because
Yeah.
it brings you to a place of like, okay, like what can I learn? What can I do? You know, what can I see? So anyway, yeah. Comes toward the end of the night. Everyone's kind of trickling away. It's me and this other guy and her. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going home. Like, I'm gonna go to bed, whatever. She's like, you're going home? I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, you live over here? I was like, no, no, no. I live like 2 towns away. Like I'm driving home. She's like, you're driving? You're going home? I was like, yeah. What do you mean? Like, she's like, you don't get it. I was like, don't get what? What do you mean? I was like, my bed's over there. I have to go to sleep. Like, and she's like, no. She's like, you're not gonna get out of this holiday what you're supposed to get out of it if you don't stay here. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, no. I was like, I like just got a job. I was like broke. I was like, I was supposed to work the next 2 days, and it was one of those like 3 day bangers where it's like 2 days Rosh Hashanah, Shabbat, like
Oh
whole
my
thing. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, am I really about to do this right now? I was like, all right, like I was like, if Rabbi tells me I could sleep here, I will stay for the whole 3 days. I'll have a moon. Shem will provide for me. Everything will be okay. And yeah, asked Rabbi. I'm like, hey, can I stay here? And like, I want to keep the holiday. And I want to keep Shabbat. He's like, yeah, okay. So that was ever since then. I've been I've kept Shabbat and Chagim
It's
and
funny how like it takes one holiday or one person like challenging you in that way, and then you're like, that's it, never stopped.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been a beautiful experience and strengthening your Muna also that everything Hashem's gonna provide for you. Everything's gonna be okay. You could take off on the holidays. You could take off on Shabbat. You'll be okay. Like
Yeah.
Hashem's gonna hold you. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And then since then, just been consistently learning and growing in my Jewish path, and you know, like and also my spiritual path. But now it's a blend of both. So it's not two paths trying to collide. It's my spiritual path is my Jewish path also. And yeah, and you know, especially you know, like the alignment is where it makes it sustainable.
100%.
So yeah, that's the whole shin bang. You know,
Yeah.
I skip some things, but
No,
you
thank
know,
you.
but
Thank you for sharing.
I think that was probably you know.
I mean,
If you have other questions though.
I like had so many parallels to your story at certain points where I was like, oh, I've had that moment or I've done that thing. Like especially when you talked about like the collision between the spiritual journey and the Jewish connection to your roots, like all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hope other people also, can take this and find their parallels because, there's something powerful in relating to one another's story and,
For sure.
um,
For sure.
you know, everyone might be at a different point in their story, but it's important to hear how other people, get by and the answers that they find. So
For sure. For sure. I think, everyone's story is unique. Everyone's path's unique. Everyone's journey is unique. And yeah, I've been through lots of different experiences. And like I said in the beginning, I don't necessarily reflect on them in a negative way. I think they all have come to the point where I am today, and like I said, I'm very happy with who I am today and where I am today. I continue to learn and grow, and that journey doesn't stop until you die, pretty much. So and that's the conclusion I've come to is that we're consistently growing, we're consistently learning, we're consistently working, and and that's part of our work in life is that we keep doing that till we die. And even when we die, maybe you still also, like, especially if there's multiple incarnations. So, like, it's, but, yeah, yeah, I do hope my story reaches anyone. If it reaches one person, I'll be happy. If it doesn't reach anyone, that's okay too. But, but, yeah, I've definitely been through a lot, regardless if it was the death or the addiction or the drugs and myself. Like the messed up family dynamic, the boarding school, like all these different like chapters of the life. Um, but it goes to show that our will is very strong. We can change no matter what. And really, if we set our mind to something, we can really do it. And I firmly believe, any changes that you want to make in your life, you can make. It's just a matter of when you're gonna decide that you want to do it for yourself, and make tangible steps in that direction.
yeah,
So
and you
yeah,
did it, and it made you the person you are. Even
for sure,
even the shadows, even the shadows. That's like that's the podcast,
for
shells and
sure,
shadows.
for sure.
Peeling back those layers of klipa of shell,
Yeah,
facing those shadows and integrating it into who you are now and saying, no, this made me who I am.
yeah,
This is part of my story. It's painful, but it molded me into the figure that I am,
yeah,
and that's something that you obviously, a lot of the stuff that you shared you wouldn't wish for, but
for sure.
you can find some gratitude for where it's taken you to.
For sure, for sure. My brother said he's doing a PhD in substance abuse treatment, and he did masters in psychology and all that stuff. So he said that statistically there's a 5% chance of survival based on our childhood and how we grew up. So to make it out is a big deal.
Yeah.
And we both made it out. So
Good.
it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, AJ. Well,
Yeah, for sure.
thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
the
having
time.
me. I appreciate it.